Today, I'm going to be teaching you a 3-step process to manifest anything that you want. Now, it's funny because manifestation is becoming this big topic and everybody's talking about it. And for those of you guys that are very analytical, it might seem very woo-woo-y, like, oh yeah, come back down to earth, hippie. But I remember back in 2006, 2007-ish, whenever that was, that The Secret came out and started talking about the law of attraction and manifesting and all these things. I started trying it. Maybe it was 2008, 2009. I don't know when it was, but whenever it came out, I literally started to think about the fact that maybe it's possible that every one of my thoughts is this like physical thing. Like I can't physically hold it, but it sends out a frequency throughout the entire universe. And I can actually start to create what it is that I want. And the harder that I focus on what it is that I want to create, the more likely I am to get it. And what you have to realize before I give you these 3 tips is that you are literally a future creator. We are all artists of our life. You are sitting down every single day with a blank canvas and deciding what to paint. But are you painting the future that you want, or you think about all of the shit that you don't want and then creating that to be the future that you're going to be living in? And for me, I have a very analytical brain. Like I think in facts and figures, and I'm a very logical thinker. And then there's another side of me that's like, let me test the boundaries and actually see like, is this possible? Is there a metaphysical meaning and things that are happening behind the scenes that I can't necessarily see, and I can't put facts and figures into it? So if you're out there and you're very woo-woo-y, I can speak to you. If you're very logical and analytical, I can also speak to you in this episode as well. So for those of you guys that are logical thinkers, we all know what we need to do to create the life that we want, right? We're just probably not doing it. We're mentally holding ourselves back in some sort of way. Like for me, one of the things that drives me the craziest with people is that I can tell you everything that you need to do to improve your life, to improve this, your relationships, business, all of these things. I can tell it to you, but you have to be the person to decide to actually take action on it, right? And so we're going to use a little bit of the manifesting and the metaphysical and the analytical and the scientific, and we're going to put all of those together and make a little smorgasbord in today's episode of exactly how to create the thing that you want to. And by following this manifestation is just a way for those of you guys that are, if you're like the most analytical person, you're like, I don't believe in manifestation at all. Okay. What I'm going to teach you today is going to trick you into finally believing in yourself so you can finally take some action. That's what we're going to dive into today. And so for those of you guys that are spiritual thinkers, you look at this world and you see everything is vibration, right? If you're looking on video, my hand is vibrating. This table that I'm sitting at is vibrating. This microphone that you're looking at is vibrating. There's all vibrating at different frequencies. And if you look at water's just vibrating at a much higher frequency than like this table is. But if you were to look at this table in a microscope, you would see that it's just all vibration. It's all waves. And so we're all frequency. And so we attract the frequency that we are. Like if you're tuning into a radio station, for those of you guys that actually have used a radio in your lifetime, some of you guys are so young, you've never used a radio, but the life that you want 10 years from now, for those of you guys that are spiritual, woo-woo, because I can dance on all sides of the woo spectrum, as I like to call it. I can get real woo-woo-y or I can get really analytical, which is like woo resistant, right? It's like a radio station. And if I can think that my future that I want 10 years down the road from today is a station that I can tune my frequency to, that's what I want to be tuning myself to every single day. You must change your frequency in order to attract. That's the way that I want you to think about it, okay? So we're going to talk to you logical people that are woo resistant, and I'm going to talk to you spiritual people that are woo-woo-y as can be, because I can dance between all aspects of this one, right? And so I'm going to go into 3 different steps. 3 different steps that I want you to go through in order to really start to attract what it is that you want, okay? The first thing that I think is the most important thing is your vision and your belief. Your vision of what it is that you want. You have to be very clear on what it is that you want, and you have to see it every single day. You have to feel it every single day. You have to normalize what it would be like to have that life. You are basically trying to brainwash yourself into believing that it is possible, right? And so you can sit down and you can visualize the future that you want today, and that's great, but you need to do it every single day. But before you visualize, you have to get very clear on exactly what it is that you want. Like, the more clear that you are on what it is that you want, the more likely you are to be able to visualize it in detail. So many people don't have the life that they want. And then when I ask them, what is it that you want? They don't know the answer to it. They know what they don't want, but a lot of times they don't know what it is that they want. So what is you have to decide what it is that you want. Then you have to sit down and visualize it in your mind's eye as often as you possibly can, at least once a day. And then the last part of that is to believe it. For me, what I think the biggest key that a lot of people don't talk about in the process of manifesting, as if it's this big, huge thing, is you have to believe with every single cell of your fucking body that it's going to happen. So like for me, I've had many things that have happened in my life that I've been seeing for so long, and I've known that they were going to happen for so long, that when they happen, I'm not necessarily surprised. And so not long ago, a few years ago, I reached out to Tony Robbins' team and I was like, hey, I'd love to interview Tony Robbins. And they asked about my podcast and the size of it. My podcast wasn't big enough yet. And they said no. I was like, all right, cool. Then a few years later, I ended up being invited to an event. There was only like 50, 60 people, whatever it was. And Tony Robbins was there, and it was Tony Robbins' actual event. And there was a small room of us. And when the event ended, there was this big, huge line of people that were like, can I get a picture with you? Can I get a picture with you? Can I get a picture with you? And there was a big line of people who wanted to meet him, to talk to him, and to take pictures with him. And Lauren, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, was like, hey, before we leave, do you want to get a picture with Tony Robbins? And I was like, no, I'm good. And she's like, really? Why not? And I was like, because I'm going to meet him one day one-on-one. She's like, all right. And so she knows that I get so hardcore in belief and believing in the future that I see in my mind that she doesn't even really question anymore, which is what's awesome. She just trusts that, like, all right, he's going to go and create it. A couple years pass after this event, and I get an email from somebody. Hey, this is, so-and-so at Tony Robbins' team. We would love to be on the Mindset Mentor podcast if you're okay with that. I was like, sure. So then leading up, like, everybody knew that it was going to be happening. All these people are like, are you excited? Are you excited? Are you excited? You're excited? I was like, yeah, I guess I'm kind of excited, And they're like, why are you not more excited? You need to be celebrating yourself. You need to be celebrating yourself. You need to take a step back and see how far you've come. And then the interview happened and everyone's like, how was it? Were you excited? Oh my gosh, it's such a big accomplishment. And they're like, why are you not more excited? And I said, because this interview happened years ago. Like, it happened. There's no cell in my body that did not know that it was going to happen. So the biggest piece that I think that people don't talk about with manifesting is that there can be no ounce of disbelief that what you want is not going to happen. Like, that it's going to happen no matter what. And so for me, when I literally set my mind to something, there's not a cell out of my 40 trillion cells in my body that does not know that it's going to happen. This house that I live in now, a few years ago, we bought it. There was 10 people bidding on the house. And Lauren was like, are you nervous and all this stuff? And I literally remember we were at the kitchen in the condo that we lived in. I looked her dead in the eye and I said to her, there is no future that exists where we do not own this house in the next coming months. Like, there's no future. There's no reality where we do not own this house. Other people are bidding against it. Whatever it is, we're getting this fucking house. There is no reality that exists where we do not own this house and live in this house. And so I'm not saying this is like, oh, I'm so good at what I do. I'm not trying to say any of that. What I'm trying to say is, when I set my vision to what is it I want, there is no reality that exists in this universe where I don't get what it is that I want. And that, to me, is the biggest piece that no one ever talks about in manifesting. Like, it doesn't exist. There's no reality that doesn't exist where I don't have it. And so there's a part of attuning myself where I'm like, I'm very clear on what it is I want. I visualize, I see it every single day. And then I know with every single cell of my body. And so when these things happen, they're not really surprises. Like, if you guys saw a slam dunk contest with Mac McClung, he was this 6'2", tiny little white guy who won the dunk contest. And one of the things that they said to him is, like, when he was getting the trophy and it was his first week in the NBA and he also won the slam dunk contest his first week in the NBA, they're like, are you so excited about this? And he's like, yeah, like I'm excited, but like I already knew this was going to happen. Like it was so interesting because he literally spoke the same way that I did, where I was like, Lauren, did you hear what he just said? And she's like, yeah, that's crazy. Because he's like, I already knew it was going to happen. I'm big into manifesting. That's what he said. I'm big into manifesting. So I knew that this was already going to happen. And so am I excited? Yes. Am I proud? Yes. Am I surprised? No. Because you shouldn't be surprised because you already know it's going to happen. So the first step, if you want to get something, is you have to get very clear on what it is that you want. You have to have the vision, and you have to believe and know with every single cell in your body that it is going to happen. Okay? You're basically brainwashing yourself into knowing that it is going to happen and is possible. That is the first step. If you miss that step, the other two steps don't matter at all. That's the first one. Cool. Number 2 is you have to develop a strategy. You can't just sit back and be like, okay, well, let's just see when it happens, right? You have to have the strategy. How are you going to do it? You have to plan it in detail. Plan out the next 365 days of your life and then chunk it down to whatever it is that you want. If you look at the next 10 years of your life, chunk it down into 1-year increments. And then from that 1-year increment, like, so if you say in 10 years, I want to be worth $10 million. Cool. Great. Amazing. Beautiful. Okay. Tell me what the next 365 days look like. You plan it out. You create a strategy of exactly what it is that you're going to do, how you're going to get there, what it's going to require of you. Then you take it down and make it into smaller chunks. You make it into quarterly chunks. You make it into monthly chunks. You make it into weekly chunks. You make it into what do I need to do today to take that next step towards this vision of the next 10 years of what I'm going to do. And you have to develop the strategy. One of the things that I hate about people who talk about, I don't hate about people. I hate about the things that people teach about manifesting is it's like you decide what you want, you sit in a forest and magically it just shows up at your doorstep. No. You've got to know what it is that you want. You've got to believe in every single cell of your body. And then you've got to create a freaking plan. Like you've got to do something about it, right? Create the plan after you figure out what it is that you want. And then the last piece is execution. So number 1, vision and belief. Number 2, strategy. And number 3, execution. This is the part that I'm telling you drives me crazy. You have to get off your ass. Like people always talk about the law of attraction. There's a very big piece that I always say that's after the law of attraction. That is the biggest piece of the law of attraction. And it's the last 6 letters of attraction, which is action. The law of attraction requires the law of action. You have to get your ass up and you have to work towards it. Nothing in this universe is going to happen until you make it happen. And when you truly believe and you work your ass off, nothing in the universe will stop you from getting to where it is that you're trying to go. People don't create the future that they want. They create the habits, and the habits create the future that they want. And so when you look at, okay, this is where I need to be in 10 years. I want to be worth $10 million. Okay, well, if that's the case, I need to chunk it down into a year. What is it that I need to do this year? And what's the plan that I need to do this year? Okay, let me start to plan it out. What do I need to do this month? What do I need to do this quarter, this month, this week, this day? And then what you do is you work towards it. The biggest missing piece that I see is that people think that just by thinking they're going to get the world that they want and the life that they want and the money that they want, the relationship they want, that it's just going to somehow show up on their doorstep, right? Like imagine if what you're trying to attract through manifesting is the perfect relationship, but you don't leave the house. That person's not going to come knocking at your door. You got to get out of the house. You got to go to places where you might run into them. Whether that be a relationship for romantic relationship, or whether that's a business partnership, or whether that's people who are going to support you on this path, you have to take action. So many people want a different life, but they're not willing to take action. They want to create a life that they love, but they're not willing to take action. And I'm here to tell you, if you're trying to sit around and manifest the life that you want, but you're not going to get off your ass, you're not going to create what you want. And so there's a 3-step process that you have to follow. The first thing is you have to get really clear on what it is that you want. You have to develop that vision, and you have to believe and know with every single, I don't even like the word believe. You have to know with every single cell of your body that's going to happen. Next thing, what you got to do, you got to create a strategy. You've got a plan. You've got to put the entire plan. Put your life together as if you are an architect. An architect is not just going to go and build a house. They're going to plan it out in every single detail. Like the house that we have now when we bought it, it was a custom built home about 8 years before we bought it. And they gave us the blueprints, and it's so cool because it's literally down to like the centimeter of this house, of what they had, the level changes, the steps that need to be here, the width, the height, the depth, everything, every single thing was planned out before they could actually go and start to build the house. That's the strategy. That's the planning. That's what you're trying to create. And then the execution. If you're building the house, you've got to go and actually start to dig, put the concrete in place, put the walls in place, put the glass up, put everything in that you need. So you've got to actually see the 3-step process of knowing what it is that you want, seeing the vision, seeing it every single day, starting to attune your inner frequency to that life that you want, into knowing with every single cell of your body that you're going to attract that thing that is that you want. You've got to then create a plan and plan exactly what it is that you want. And last thing is you've got to get out and actually start to create it. You've got to execute and take action, execute and take action, execute and take action. If you follow this 3-step process, you will create the life that you want. The only thing that's in your way is you. You've got to go out and create it. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories and tag me in it, Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. And with that, I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make someone else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to teach you 3 techniques to get more done in less time. Let's dive in. Today, I'm going to be teaching you how to be more productive, how to get more done in less time, and how to stop being such a busy bee, I guess you could say. I've worked with a lot of people over time, and I have this day that kind of pops up and is told to me all of the time. And you've probably felt this way before, which is, hey, I work so much, but I don't feel like I'm getting anything done. You ever had one of those days where you're just working, and you're slaving away and you're doing something, and at the end of the day, you're like, man, I'm exhausted, but I don't feel like I did anything. If so, you are probably being busy and not being productive. So there's a massive difference between busy and productive. Busy is just doing things. Being productive, productivity is conquering the most important things. And let's be real. You waste a lot of time, don't you? Like we all do. It's funny because I'll talk with people and they're like, I'm so busy. I'm like, show me your calendar. And they're like, well, I don't really keep a calendar. I kind of have like a little bit here. Most people that I have found are absolutely terrible with time management. So it's not that they don't have enough time. It's usually that you're not really good at managing their time. We all want a perfect life. We all want to make money and travel the world and have fun and buy some cool things and, donate a bunch of money to the world and have great relationships. We all want a perfect life. But what's really interesting about being a human is that you only get 24 hours every single day. You and every single person on this earth gets 24 hours. That will never change. You cannot control time. The only thing that we can change is how productive we are when we want to get something done. Now, this is not an episode about hustle culture and working your ass off all day long. I used to be that person, and I'm telling you, don't be that person. Learn from my mistakes. That's not how you get to success. Let me say that again. You can get to success, but you're going to hate your life on the way over there. And so what I recommend is like having a time where you click on to be productive, to get stuff done, whether that's your business, whether that's work, whether that's, helping the children get something done with their schoolwork, whatever it might be. When you click in, you're in. There is nothing else that you're doing. When you click out, you are out. You're not thinking about it. You're not going back into it. So today we're going to dive into how to get a lot more done in less time. Because when you look at the average person that works an 8-hour day, they only usually get about 2 to maybe 3 hours of productivity done, which means that they're wasting time or trying to multitask or trying to do a whole bunch of other things for 5 hours out of the day. And so we're going to talk about some stuff about how to get more done based in psychology, based in studies to teach you what has actually been proven to work. And I'm going to teach you these different techniques to kind of help you do more in less time. The first one, and the one that a lot of people don't know about, you've probably heard about it, is something called the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. And so you have to understand our brain is a very energy consuming organism, or organ is what it is. Your brain consumes more energy per pound than any other organ in your entire body. right? Now, digestion takes more energy throughout the day, but as far as the actual brain itself and for how big it is, it actually takes the most amount of energy. And so what I think about is how can I use every bit of energy to be as productive as possible when I'm trying to be productive? Because our brain has limited capacity to process information. We have limited energy throughout the entire day. How can I bring as much of my brain power to what matters most? And so the way to kind of really think about that is to realize, what am I dedicating my time to? In the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle is basically this. 80% of the results that you get in your life, this could be your business, this could be the company that you work for, this could be your clients and the revenue that comes in, your relationships, come from 20% of your actions. So, like for instance, if I run a business, which I do, and I help a lot of people who do run businesses, right? If I run a business, there are a million things I could be doing every single day, but 20% of those actions are the most important actions. 20% will usually give me 80% of the results. They might even give me 90% of the results, but 20%, and it doesn't have to add up to 100 because I'm talking about 20% of my actions, and which is actions. On the other side, I'm talking about results. 20% of your actions that you do on a daily basis in your business are the most important things you should be doing. So if you're a CEO and you've got employees, you should find a way to delegate everything except for those 20% of your actions. If you are a salesperson, usually your commissions, and you look at your commissions throughout the entire year, usually 20% of the clients are the majority of your commissions. If you're in relationship, 20% of the things that you do are going to bring the majority of the connection, the happiness, the joy between you as well. And so what we want to do by looking at this is we want to identify and concentrate on the tasks that are going to give us the most significant results. It's crazy to me when I work with business owners how much time they waste doing stuff that does not matter because they either are afraid of taking the big action because the big action could yield some failure and that would make them feel bad about themselves, or because they have problems delegating. This happens all the time. And so when you're focusing on the most critical task, what you want to do is you want to minimize as many distractions as you can so that you can really optimize your cognitive resources and be in it. As Cal Newport says, you want to be able to do deep work on those things. And you really want to start putting a whole lot of deep work into that. And so the thing that I've shared, which is a very simple thing that I recommend that everybody does every single morning, is you make a to-do list every single morning. If you're a business owner, if you're a mother, if you're a father, if you are somebody who is a high school athlete, whatever it might be that you're doing, if you're a college student, write down all of your to-do list. And then what I want you to do to make it very simple, because you probably won't get your entire to-do list done today, is you find and you circle the 3 most important tasks. This is what I do every single morning when I'm meeting with my team, is with my energy, I want to put all of my energy or the majority of my energy into the biggest, I always tell my team, the biggest levers that I can pull. What is the biggest lever that I can pull right now? I could be working until midnight, 1 a.m. every single day, but I don't. And so with the time that I have, if I'm going to get done at 5, 6 o'clock, what's the biggest lever that I can pull right now that can make the biggest impact in the business? So you make your to-do list and you circle the 3 most important tasks. Then you get a 3x5 card, an index card, and you write down number 1 and you rank them. Number 1, number 2, and number 3. Just work on number 1. Don't do anything else except for number 1. This helps you identify the biggest needle-moving, lever-pulling task that you could possibly do for today. And what you want to do is you want to just write all of them down, the 3 things. And if you don't do anything else except for get number 1 done, it's a pretty damn productive day. If you get number 2 done as well and number 3 done as well, you had a really great day. But all of the other things, you can either delegate, you can eliminate, or you can do another time. That's it. You delegate them, you eliminate them, or you can do another time. And that's really what it comes down to, is identifying what are the most important tasks that I could be doing. So that's the first thing, is the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. The next thing that I recommend people do is to batch. Batch as much as you possibly can when you're doing stuff. And so for me, like I'm creating content today. Today is one of my content creation days. And so I woke up in the morning and I did, I checked in with my team after 10 o'clock because in the morning is when I am the most creative for me. And so I looked back and I was like, okay, I know I need to plan episodes today. I need to record episodes today. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look through all of my ideas. I have this massive list of ideas that I've been putting together over years and years of recording this podcast. And I just see which one hits home with me this morning. And then I find the one. And then what I do is I start writing them all out. I start putting bullet points and starting to make a flow of the podcast. And I'll do 2 episodes in the morning, late afternoonish, late morning as well. And then I come to the studio and I record 2 or 3 podcast episodes whenever I come to the studio. When I first had the podcast, this is not even me lying, and the podcast used to come out only 3 times a week, I used to record the episode the night before. Sometimes, majority of the time. I'd record the night, oh my God, I got to put an episode out tomorrow. What should I talk about? And I just plan it out real quick and I put it up. It's way easier to plan and record and to batch them. I'm in the flow of writing. I'm going to go ahead and get them done. I'm in the flow of recording. I'm going to go ahead and get them done. So like yesterday, I planned 2 episodes. I recorded 2 episodes, and then I planned 6 reels for Instagram and then recorded 6 reels for Instagram so that over a few hours, I'm doing the biggest needle moving thing that I can do. And that is, have more people aware of the brand, more people aware of the business. And so what can you do to batch what it is that you do? Instead of saying, oh, I'm going to do an email here, and then 20 minutes later, I'm going to check my email here. I think the average person, I saw a study that says they check their email 32 times a day. Holy shit, that's crazy. What if you just checked your email in the morning and you got emails done, and then you didn't look at them again until 4 o'clock, and then you got emails done from 4 to 5, right? Like how can you learn to start batching things that you're doing often? And then what you do is you look at your schedule and you schedule and batch the most important tasks. And I do this every single Wednesday and Thursday I record, and then sometimes Wednesday, Thursday, and today is Friday, 3 days in a row. Plan, record, because I'm trying to get ahead, because if you listen to the episode 2 or 3 episodes ago, my wife is pregnant, so I'm going to take some time off from recording. So I'm actually trying to get ahead so that I could take some time off for recording once the baby comes. So that's the next thing, is to batch. So 80-20 principle, which is called the Pareto principle. There's batching. And then the last one is if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, I love getting messages from you guys saying that you never did this before, you started doing it, and it completely changed your productivity, because it completely changed my productivity as well. It is called the Pomodoro technique. I have an entire episode on it if you want to go back and listen to the Pomodoro technique. But really what it comes down to is it is impossible for a human to multitask. There are many studies that show that multitasking is just single tasking, and you're switching between 2 things at one time. When you switch, there is a little bit of a delay in time. It could be up to 15 minutes for you to get your brain into like fully be in that thing. And so multitasking, they showed it makes people dumber. It also makes the quality of your work worse. Google it. Just check, is multitasking good or bad? But there was a study, just to kind of give you an idea, that was done at Stanford that found out that heavy multitaskers performed worse on tasks that required attention and memory than those that were focused at one task at a time. And so the research really supports the idea that prioritizing your high impact tasks and avoiding multitasking makes you more productive. And so with the Pomodoro technique, as you basically identify one thing that needs to be done, and you shut out the rest of the world. You put on your headphones, you put your phone in another room so that you don't accidentally go for it. You turn off all of your notifications on your computer. You put a sign on the door that says, "Don't bother me because I'm getting shit done." And literally you take 25 minutes and you put 25 minutes. I wrote about this in my book, Level Up, of how to do the Pomodoro technique and how to do what I call Pomodoro Plus, which is a whole other technique that I've kind of built over years. And so you do the Pomodoro technique. It's 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. And in those 25 minutes, you only do one thing, and you bring 100% of your brain power. And that's, like as Cal Newport would say, that's where you actually put in the deep work. And so you put in deep work for 25 minutes. Now, if you get done at those 25 minutes, you can then go to your next task. But if you don't get done, you just go back to that task again until that task is done. And so it's 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, because in those 5 minutes, you need to give your brain a full rest. When I say full rest, that means you don't look at your phone, you don't do much. You can go outside, you can go for a walk for 5 minutes, or you could just sit at your desk, close your eyes, and breathe for 5 minutes. You're giving your brain a rest. It's like lifting really heavy weight. You got to take a rest for a few minutes, and then you go back into lifting really heavy weights. And the Pomodoro technique will absolutely change your life and your productivity. It's so damn simple, but it works so well. One thing only, 100% of your brain power to this one thing. And so if you really start to think about it, if you can figure out a way to start using the 80-20 rule to identify the biggest tasks that need to be done today that will be the most productive things that you could do. You batch out the things that can all be done, like, oh, I need to record 4 episodes this week. Well, I can just get all of those done in 1 day or 2 days. You batch them. But then when you sit down to work, it needs to be, I have an entire chapter in this in my book. You can read about it and level up. But it needs to become a ritual. It needs to become a thing where it's, instead of like, oh shit, I got to sit here and get work done. It's like, it's a ritual, not a habit. Habits are habits, routines are routines, but a ritual like feels important. It is important that I bring 100% of my brain power to this task. You will get more done, and you will be light years ahead of other people years down the road, because most people, as I said, only get 2 hours of productivity done, maybe 3 hours of productivity. If you can get 5 hours done, you're light years ahead of people in a year, and you're in a completely different universe 5 years down the road. And so what's most important is to stop being busy, start being productive, and to start focusing on the needle moving tasks and getting those crossed off your list every single day, and then bringing 100% of your brain power when you're doing those things to bring the best of yourself and everything that you do. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories. Tag me in it, Rob Dial Jr. Also, if you haven't heard the past few episodes, if you love this podcast, I'm launching a thing called Mindset Mentor Plus. It's an entire community and platform to help you not just listen to the podcast passively, but actually actively integrate this fully into your life. There's a lot of different ways we're going to do it. There are detailed worksheets for every single episode so that you can use them as study guides and get better. There's thought-provoking journaling prompts. There's really targeted assignments so that you can take these episodes and actually start to use them in your life. And then also at the same time, there's going to be an entire community that you're going to have that you can join of all other people who are podcast listeners, Mindset Mentor podcast listeners, so that you're not the only weird person in your life that's trying to grow and improve and get better, but you can meet other weirdos like us. We're going to have exclusive Q&A sessions. We're going to have a ton of other bonuses, and it's all for, less than you probably spend on coffee each month. And so if you want to sign up for the waitlist, founding members will get 25% off. And so that'll be for lifetime. And so if you want to learn more about it, go to mindsetwaitlist.com. We're going to email them before it gets announced in the podcast. And so if you want to join, once again, mindsetwaitlist.com, and you'll be one of the first people in the world to learn about it. And with that, I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make somebody else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be talking about how to have more confidence. I'm going to give you 6 different steps that you can follow in order to build confidence, because confidence is not something that you're born with. Confidence is something that you build throughout your lifetime. So let's dive in. Confidence is something that you earn. You can't sit on the couch, scroll on Instagram, and watch Netflix all day and magically just be given confidence. Confidence is something that you have to go out and earn. And confidence comes from going in a lot of different ways, but doing things, whether you do something and you didn't really want to do it and you fail massively, you still get confidence from that if you look at it the right way. If you look at the fail and you say, oh my gosh, I failed, you're not going to get much confidence from it. But if you look and you say, you know what, maybe I didn't get the results that I wanted, but I did do the thing that I was afraid of, and I'm proud of myself for that. That can build your confidence. So when you really start to look at it, confidence can come from that, but also a lot of times confidence can just come from just taking the action. Sometimes it comes from results. Like a lot of times people think like, well, like I've never graduated college, and I've never won any awards, and I've never spoken on stage, and I've never done anything that I've never had results that should make me confident. It can come from results, but it doesn't always have to come from results. When you see a confident person, you're seeing someone who has either gotten results by doing something, or they've been out of their comfort zone over and over and over again, and they're starting to be more confident in themselves because they trust themselves to do what needs to be done, regardless of how they feel. And so people are not born with confidence. The way I like to see confidence, for some reason, it always pops up in my head this way. But the way that I see confidence is like Jenga blocks. Every time you do something, either you go out and you do get great results, you get a confidence block, or you go and you do something that you didn't want to do. Even if you fail, you still get a little confidence block if you say, you know what, I'm proud of myself for doing what I didn't want to do. Or you decide, you know what, I'm going to do a workout today. And I don't have a whole lot of time, but I'm going to do it. And you show up for yourself, you get a little confidence block. Then when you say, you know what, I'm going to do a cold plunge, and I don't want to do a freaking cold plunge today, and you do it anyways, you get a little confidence block. And so that's kind of the way that I see it in my mind. But today we're going to go through 6 different ways to help you build, exactly like I'm saying with the confidence blocks, with the Jenga, build your confidence. Number 1, first one is to take action. You cannot think your way into confidence. Let me just say that again. You cannot think your way into confidence. You can't just sit there and say, I'm the most confident person in the world. No, it's not going to work that way. Confidence comes from doing what you don't want to do, or it comes from results in some way. It comes from doing something and seeing that you did that thing, like I've been saying. It also comes from doing something and being like, you know what? Yeah, I royally screwed that up, but I'm really proud of myself that I did it. Or a lot of times what I see with people is a lot of people, we hold ourselves back and we think too much, and then we do something and we do it way better than we thought we were going to do it. That will give you a lot of confidence. So the first thing you have to do is you have to start taking action. Become good at following through, doing what you say you're going to do. Not just doing it because other people know about it, but doing what you say you're going to do for yourself. Doing what you said you were going to do and prioritizing yourself. And so like a lot of times I see that people want accountability partners in lots of things that they do because they don't want to look like an ass when they don't do what they said they were going to do. Yeah, okay, I get that. You could definitely do it. But no matter what, there's always one person that's listening to you, and that's you. And how many times you said you're going to do something and then you didn't follow through? Well, of course, your confidence is going to be low from that because you're saying to yourself, oh, I want to go do this thing. And immediately your brain's going, yeah, do you remember how many times you've given up on yourself in the past though? There's one person that's always paying attention to yourself, and it's you. And so you have to get really good at taking the action that you say you're going to take. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I want you to think about is visualization. Might sound corny, might sound cliche. Even when I talk about visualization, even though I've been doing it for years, like the very first time I ever did visualization was when I was 13 years old. And I wrote about this in my book, Level Up. And I remember I was really nervous before my championship basketball game. I was the best player on my basketball team, and I was in the championship game the next day with my really good friend, Eddie, and he was the best person on his basketball team, but he was way better than I was. And I remember I was telling my mom, she's like, are you excited for the game tomorrow? And I was like, I'm actually really nervous. And she's like, you know what you should do? You should go and you should actually visualize the game. And I was like, what does that mean? I was 13 years old. She's like, go in and visualize how you want the game to go. Visualize walking onto the court, visualize the warm-ups, visualize how you want the game to go, everything. I was like, okay. And so I did it, and I went in and I visualized. I still remember I visualized on the floor of my bathroom when I was 13. And it was crazy because I was really nervous thinking about it the day before, but then I visualized it. And because I had already visualized it, when I went to the actual game the next day, because I felt like I'd already been there, because I'd already visualized it, I was way more confident. Now, did we lose? Yes, we still got our asses handed to us. We lost the game. But I was way more confident going into that game, having visualized how I wanted it to go. And so sometimes if you're not confident with something, the more that you can get repetition around something. So like for me, for years, I was not good and not confident at public speaking, but I just kept doing it over and over and over and over and over again. And now it's just normal to me because I've probably got about 25,000 hours of public speaking at this point in time. And so for me, I'm way more confident just from the repetition. And so how do we get repetition if we're not actually on stage all the time? Well, what do? You visualize it. And whatever it is that you're nervous about or you want to be more confident in, can you visualize it over and over and over again? Because your brain does not know the difference between something that you're visualizing and something that you're actually doing. And so if you want to get more confident in something, just try to start visualizing the way that you want it to go over and over and over again. See the person that you want to be. See yourself giving that presentation at work and crushing it, and your boss coming up to you and saying, "Oh my gosh, Stacy, that was amazing. You did such a good job." See yourself as a confident person. Most people unintentionally visualize everything that they don't want. And then they're curious why they're so afraid to take action. It's because you're visualizing in your head everything that you don't want most of the time. And so you can use visualization to help you do this as well. That's number 2. Third thing that'll help you out is using affirmations. Now, when I say use affirmations, I don't mean sit there and close your eyes and say, "I'm confident, I'm confident, I'm confident, I'm confident, I'm confident." When I say affirmations, I mean talk better to yourself. Talk better to yourself. I want you to think of it that way. Think of the worst person in your life. Like, think of the person who's been the most of a pain in the ass in your entire life. There's a really good chance that you have talked worse to yourself than they have talked to you. There's a pretty good chance that you are worse to yourself than they are to you. And so when you talk with affirmations, it doesn't mean just, hey, I'm going to just lie to myself. What it means is actually paying attention to the story and the narrative that's going on in your head all the time, and start noticing and really being aware of what it is that you are saying to yourself. It's really mind-boggling to me to see how many people just are not really aware of the way they speak to themselves. And then when they become aware, they're like, holy shit, I am not nice to myself. And so really what it comes down to is start to affirm the way that you want to think about yourself and affirm the way that you want the world to be, and start talking to yourself better. So if you notice yourself talk down to yourself, immediately become self-aware of it and say, "Oh, I just noticed myself doing this. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to say 3 positive things." If I notice one way that I don't want to think, then I'm going to change it by saying 3 things that I do want to think immediately, and to make sure that I pay attention to that. And to also notice that, I can say affirmations, and an affirmation is just the way that we speak to ourselves. But another way to do an affirmation is something called an incantation, which is basically the easiest way I think of it is like a affirmation with power, with more energy behind it. And like if you think about the scariest moment of your life. The scariest moment of your life is usually charged with a lot of emotion. And so you have one big event that happens in your life and it's charged with a lot of emotion. So if we want these affirmations to be more powerful, we need to charge them with a lot of emotion, with incantations, which is, if you're starting to think to yourself like, "Oh, I'm weak," or something like that. Well, then when you go to the gym, let's say you go for a run, right? And you just start saying to yourself, "I'm strong, I'm strong, I'm strong." And you're saying it with power, with emotion while you're on the run. And you're actually starting to reprogram the way that you speak to yourself. And so start to pay attention much more to the way that you speak to yourself. That's number 3. Number 4 is to fail. Just fail. And realize that when you fail, like I'm talking about like fall on your face, because success and failure are not the opposite. Success and failure are just different spectrums, different ends of a spectrum. It's like one coin. You have heads and you have tails. You can't have heads without having tails. You can't have success without having failure. They're the opposite sides of the same coin. They're on a spectrum. One's on one side, the other's on the other. Success is 99% failure. Fall on your face and realize that failure will not kill you. Once you see that failure will not kill you, you won't fear it as much. It's not really a big deal. People who I have found that are extremely successful want to fail in a new endeavor as fast as possible because they want to get it out of the way. People I see who are unsuccessful try to avoid failure. And so, fall on your face, then pick yourself up and keep on going. Because even failing and then picking yourself and continue to keep going builds confidence, because you're saying, "You know what? I'm getting up and I'm doing this for myself. I'm proud of myself for doing that." That builds a lot of confidence. The feeling of I'm not willing to give up on myself will build confidence. A confident person is not born that way. A confident person is built, people. How do you build yourself? Do it. Do what you don't want to do. Fail. Screw it up. Get up and keep going and remind yourself, "Look at me. Look at what I'm doing. Look at what I'm doing for myself." So that's number 4. Number 5 is say yes to more things out of your comfort zone. Start to seek discomfort. When you would normally say no, say yes. Try that out for a little while. A lot of times you're like, no, I don't really feel like going out to that networking event. Whenever you feel that moment come up, go, yes, I'll go. Shit, all right, now I got to go to it. I already agreed to it. And when you start to do this, you start to seek things that are out of your comfort zone. Once again, just like failure, you realize it's not going to kill you, but you're doing something you've never done before. Remind yourself how awesome that is. Remind yourself that you're growing. Like another way to think about it is all too often we're looking out of the windshield, the front in front of us, where we want to go, what we want to do. Not too often enough do we actually look in the rearview mirror and be like, oh my God, look at how far I've come. If you would take more time to stop and think about how far you've come and what you've done and what you've overcome and how strong you are. Like one of the things I said a few episodes ago is like any woman who's ever given birth should just remind themselves of that and realize that nothing is harder than that. Like just remind yourself, I'm a badass. I've given birth to 3 children. I can build a fucking business. I got this. Like remind yourself of how much of a badass you are and just keep on reminding yourself of these things. Because all too often we look at, where we aren't and where we're not, oh my gosh, I want to be here, but I'm not there yet. But a lot of times you don't look in the rearview mirror and be like, oh my God, look at all the things that I've overcome. Look at all the ways that I had this really hard thing that happened to me that I overcame. And I had this death that happened and I had this divorce that happened and I had this that happened. I overcame it. You know what? I'm a lot stronger than I think I am. And just start reminding yourself of those things. And then number 6, you just got to do what you don't want to do. You do. Build confidence by just doing what it is that you don't want to do. You got to get in cold water sometimes. I was just in Sedona last week and, they have a creek that flows through Sedona and it's cold. It was like 40 degrees. And I was sitting there and I knew I wanted to do it. And I was sitting there and I was breathing. And as I'm doing it, that little voice pops up inside of my head. And it's like, no, don't do it. It was funny because I jumped out of the car, told Lauren I was going to go and jump inside of the water. And there was literally the voice inside of my head was going, if you come back and you're not wet, Lauren will understand. She'll be like, yeah, it is really cold. I completely get it. Like Lauren wouldn't be like, oh, you're a little bitch. Why didn't you jump in the water? So I even had this voice in my head that was just like, Lauren would understand. And I was like, no, fuck you. I'm going to be doing it anyways. And so I had the voice keep coming in. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to jump in the water, but I did want to jump in the water. I didn't want to jump in the water because of how it feels. I did want to jump in the water based off of how I'm going to feel after I get out of the water and all of the energy that I'm going to have, but also the sense of confidence of you did it and you didn't want to do it. When you keep doing stuff like that is when you start to build confidence. You wake up and you're like, I'm tired. I don't want to get this workout in, but you do it anyways. That's when you start to build confidence. When you hear the alarm go off in the morning and you normally would hit the snooze and you decide to get up and do what you don't want to do, that's when you start to build confidence. And so you got to start seeking opportunities to do things that you don't want to do, because every time that you take just a little bit of a step outside of your comfort zone and you do a little bit of the things that you don't want to do, you build a little bit more confidence, a little bit more confidence, a little bit more confidence. And you won't wake up tomorrow and be a completely different person that's completely confident. But if you keep expanding yourself out of your comfort zone just a little bit every single day, you notice in a year, you're way more confident than you were. You notice in 2 years, 5 years, you're way more confident than you were. I've seen people that go through 30 days of just concentrating on growing themselves. And at the end of those 30 days, they're way more confident just because of a consistent pushing themselves out of their comfort zone. The way I like to think of a comfort zone, and I've said this before in the podcast, is like a rubber band, right? When you have a rubber band, if you pull it just a little bit, it won't break. But if you pull it and get it to its peak of where it can go, it'll really try to force you back to normal. It'll really try to pull you back in. But if you pull long enough, eventually it snaps. That's what you're trying to do with your comfort zone. You're trying to just expand it a little bit more, and eventually you snap that comfort zone and you never go back to the same person you were before. I always say it, the mind is like a plastic bag, not an elastic bag. And when it's a plastic bag, if you pull it, it never goes back to the same size that it was before. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to break the rubber band. You're trying to break the bag. You're trying to expand yourself past what you're comfortable doing now. And if you just seek this discomfort, seek to do things a little bit further outside of your comfort zone every single day, you'll look back in a year and you'll be a completely different person. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories and tag me at Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. And if you're the type of person who is looking to grow themselves, and you know right now that nothing will change unless you change. Your 2024 will not be better than 2023 unless you change and you make it better. I'm running a 30-day challenge throughout the course of January. It's called Level Up 30, where over the course of 30 days, I'm going to be coaching you every single weekday on a group coaching format with everybody else who's going through the challenge. And we're going to be pushing ourselves, hitting 6 different pillars every single day for 30 days straight to break ourselves out of our comfort zone and to grow ourselves into a better version of ourselves. If you're interested in learning more about it, you can go to levelup30.com. So levelup30.com. There's a video that explains everything. You can look at testimonies from over 5,000 people that have gone through these challenges in the past. Check it out and see if it's right for you. Once again, it is levelup30.com. And with that, I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make somebody else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome to today's episode of the Mindset Mentor podcast. I'm your host, Rob Dial. Today, I'm going to talk about how to fall in love with the process of taking the action that you need to in order to hit your goals. You're here, I'm assuming, listening to this podcast. You clicked on this, you clicked play because you are in a place in your life where you want to get better, you want to improve, and you have some sort of goals that you want to hit. Now, I don't like being called a motivational speaker, and the reason why is because I'm not trying to motivate you in any sort of way. What I really want you to do is understand yourself, understand your body, understand your brain, and understand how you normally hold yourself back, how to get past it, and then how to actually fall in love with the process of taking action. Because if you're going to create the life that you want to, you're going to need to figure out some sort of way to take action. You want to accomplish. And I found that there's 2 ways that you can accomplish. And I've done both of them, and I'll tell you about it. The first way is you can struggle your way to success, which is most people. This is me for the first 30-ish years of my life, is I thought to myself, in order for me to succeed, I'm going to have to put my head down. I'm going to have to bash through some walls. I'm not really big into the stars and paying attention to where the planets are and all that stuff. I do know that I am an Aries, and when you look at Aries, they're, the symbol is a ram, and they're known to put their heads down and just bash through walls. So that is kind of my typical way of operating. That's my typical operating system. And for the first 30-ish years of my life, probably 2 years of my life, it was, here's the goal I want. I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to struggle my way to success. I'm going to force myself to get there no matter what, which is fine. But when you struggle your way to success, eventually you get to the point where you're like, I can't do this anymore. That's usually where burnout comes from. And I have gotten to quote unquote success by doing that. But then I've massively burnt out and just been tired of what I was doing. That's the first way that you can hit your goals. The second way is that you can learn to fall in love with the process, fall in love with the process of who you need to become and what you need to do in order to achieve whatever it is you're looking to achieve. And it really goes back to the phrase, the man who loves walking will go further than the man who's running for the goal. And so for me, the first part of my life was very much like, I want to make X amount of dollars this year. And that means that I need to do this many sales calls. I need to knock on this many doors. I need to do this many cold calls. And whether I love it, whether I hate it, no matter what, I'm going to force myself to do it. And that was me just running towards a goal. What I ended up finding out is that the man who loves walking will go further than the man who is running for the goal. I ended up going, you know what? I have these goals that I have in life. How do I get myself to actually love the process of taking action, to actually start to fall in love with it? And so today we're going to talk about something that's called the dopamine reward system. And this is huge. There's actually an entire section in my book where I go really, really deep. So in my book, Level Up, the very last section of part 3, which is towards the end, I talk about the dopamine reward system because I think it's so important for people to understand how they can actually, no BS, rewire their brain to fall in love with the action that they need to take. So when you look at the dopamine reward system, what is dopamine? People think that dopamine is a feel-good chemical in the brain. And it kind of is, but dopamine is really more than anything else the chemical of motivation. It's the chemical that makes you motivated. When you are not motivated to do something, that is actually called in neurobiology a low dopamine state. So when you're sitting on the couch, you're like, man, I don't want to do anything. You're actually in what neurobiologists call a low dopamine state. Now, when you're in a very excited, hell yeah, this is amazing, I can't wait to go for this thing, that's called a high dopamine state. And dopamine, the thing about it is it is a very external chemical. It's not really internally based. A lot of times people put dopamine and serotonin in the same sentence, but serotonin is a chemical of here, of now. It's a internal chemical. It's gratitude. It's being grateful for what you have. Dopamine is a chemical of more. And if you look at like the most addicting drugs that somebody can do, they're always high dopamine chemicals. And so I'm not saying that you need to do drugs. That's not what I'm saying at all. But if you look at cocaine, for instance, cocaine is a high dopamine chemical. And so you start to look at it and you see, well, someone who doesn't have cocaine but really wants cocaine, they're in a really high dopamine state. They're like, I need to get it, I need to get it, I need to get it. And they get very motivated towards getting that chemical. But dopamine itself is the chemical of more. And the chemical is released whenever you want it to be released. That's the craziest part about it, is dopamine in the chemical can be released whenever you want it to be, which is awesome. You can celebrate yourself along the way, along the process of trying to build the life that you want. When you hit different milestones, when you take different actions, and your brain will release a little bit of dopamine. And what's cool about that is that when your brain releases a little bit of dopamine, guess what it wants more of? It wants more dopamine. And so it wants to keep going, it wants to keep pushing, it wants to keep going, it wants to keep pushing. And when you celebrate yourself, even if it's just a small little mini celebration, the cool thing about that is not only do you want more, but more than anything else, you're going to be driven to actually take the action that you need to in your life. And so what we're really going to dive into is how to use this chemical to take action when you need to and to create the life that you want. And the best part about dopamine and releasing the dopamine is that this right here is very subjective, which means that you can decide when you want to feel good, when you want to release dopamine, and when you want to start motivating yourself to take more action. One of the things that I found of the most common trait among the highest achievers, like the greatest achievers in our lifetime, if you look at, for instance, Michael Jordan, if you look at Kobe Bryant, if you look at the greatest CEOs, some might say that their number one key to success is hard work. It's dedication. It's obsession. And I would say that they are definitely hard workers. They are definitely obsessed. They are definitely dedicated. But most of them fell in love with the process of taking the action that they need to. They fell in love with what it is that they're doing. This is why you can see someone become worth $100 million and people are always like, man, they've got all the money in the world. Why don't they stop? Like they could just sit back and enjoy their life. It's because doing what got them to that end result is actually what they love. They love the feeling of waking up and building themselves to be the greatest athlete alive. Or they love the feeling of waking up and building the business that changes the world, or perfecting the process of their sales system. Like they actually truly enjoy it. Most people, when they think about work and putting in hard work, it's immediate resistance of like, I don't want to do that. That doesn't sound fun. These people, though, fell in love with the process. And so I'm sure they probably didn't do it on purpose, but most of them probably set up a dopamine reward system that they attached to the process. And so when you look at a dopamine reward system, what exactly is that? It is a way for your brain to release some dopamine after you accomplish something that's part of your process. Now, let me give you some examples, okay? When I was first in my sales company, when I was 19, 20 years old, I didn't know it, and I'm not even sure if my manager knew it, but he set up a dopamine reward system process for me. And so we would sit down and we would make a lot of cold calls. And if you've ever done cold calls before, it's one of the worst things to do. It sucks to sit down and make cold calls. And so we would have these things called phone jams, and we would make 100 phone calls in like 3 or 4 hours. We'd sit down at a table with a phone, a bunch of numbers, and we would just call through all of them. And that is not fun. It's not motivating. And so the thing that my manager actually had me do was he's like, hey man, do you like candy? And I was like, yes, I'm basically like a crackhead when it comes to sugar. And that's why I keep it out of my house. He said, what's your favorite candy? I said, Skittles. And he said, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go, and before you come in to make your phone calls, I want you to get a bag of Skittles. And what I want you to do is I want you to allow yourself to have 3 Skittles after every 10 calls. And so I would go, okay. And so I'd put the Skittles out on the table in front of me, and I would have 3 of them right there. And I'd say, okay, when I get my first 10 phone calls done, I get 3 Skittles. So I'd make my phone calls because I was like, crackhead wanting to get those Skittles, right? And so I'd make those 10 phone calls, and then I get 3 Skittles. And then I would make another 10 phone calls and I would get 3 Skittles. And I would make another 10 phone calls and I would get 3 Skittles. And by the time I finished and I was done with my 100 calls, I could finish the rest of the bag. And it wasn't the finishing of the 100 phone calls that I could have them. It was all along the way, the process of actually making the phone calls. And so this is what's really important about it. This is where most people mess up. And I did this for years, is we think to ourselves, I will not be happy until I achieve X, Y, Z. I will not be happy until I make $100,000 this year. Yeah, you can do that, but you're talking about not releasing dopamine until you achieve the goal. And so even if I were to sit there and say, okay, I've got Skittles right here and I could have them, but I can only have my bag of Skittles after I finish the 100 phone calls. Well, what happens is I'm taking my goals and I'm only releasing dopamine in my brain and getting myself excited and more excited to want more after I finish the 100 phone calls, which could be 4 hours from now. Or you could, if you remember E.T., for those of you guys that are older and remember E.T. when they were trying to get E.T. out and they put like a Reese's Pieces and then another one like 3 feet later and another 3 feet later. And it was like the breadcrumbs that they were basically trying to get him to follow, but he's following Reese's Pieces and he would come out and he would eat one of them and then he'd go a little bit further and he'd eat another one. He'd go a little bit further and eat another one. That's what you're basically trying to do for yourself. You're trying to pull yourself to where you want to go and giving yourself a little bit of the reward along the way. A little bit of the reward along the way, a little bit of the reward along the way until you have completed the task that you want to. And so that's one way that you could use it. Another way you could use it as well is visual progress bars and trackers. And so you could create a progress bar or a tracker for tasks or habits that you're trying to establish. And what happens is, this is actually something that Jerry Seinfeld's really famous for doing, is years ago, it was like in the 1990s when he was just starting to become a really big comic. Another comic who was brand new went up to him and he's like, hey man, like I'm trying to get to your level. I'm trying to become better. I'm a new comic. What's the best tip that you can give me? And he said, what I do is I write jokes every single day, no matter what. And sometimes they're good jokes, majority of the time they're terrible jokes, but I'm trying to get myself into the habit of writing all day, every day, as many times as I can. And so what he would do is he actually set this exact same thing up, a visual progress to track what he was doing. And so it became known as the Seinfeld calendar. And so what he did was he had a month that was printed out and he put it up on his wall. So he had like those old school calendars up on his wall. And when he would accomplish his task of writing for say 20 minutes for the day, and let's say he just did 20 minutes every single day, if that's what it was, then what he would do is he would walk up to that calendar and he would put a big red X over that calendar, that one day that he got done. That alone made him feel good. That is a dopamine reward system for checking off the day and getting that thing accomplished. And then the next day, he'd sit down, he'd do 20 minutes, and he would put another red X. Next day, he'd sit down, 20 minutes, put another red X. And what happens is he started to make a chain of red X's. And once you start to see that chain, guess what you don't want to do? You don't want to break the chain. You want to continue the chain. You want to keep it going. And so you could use visual things like this to help yourself do it. Another thing that you could do as well is to set up social accountability and praise. And so let's say that you want to go to the gym every day for the next 30 days. You're going to call up your best friend and you're going to say, hey, listen, I'm really trying to get in this habit of just going to the gym no matter what. I would like for you to hold me accountable to it. Is that cool? They're like, yeah, of course. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let you know every single time I get done at the gym. I'm either going to call you or I'm going to text you just to make sure that I get my day done and I get my workout done for the day. I don't need you to do anything else except for say, great job, or I'm proud of you, or hell yes, or whatever it might be. I just need some mini form of celebration. Then what happens? You go to the gym the next day, you send them a text message, maybe you at the gym, all sweaty, and you're like, just got my workout done. And they send you a text message back and they're like, I'm so proud of you, amazing. Find that one friend that's like the friend that's just, we all have those friends where it's just like every time you're around them, you feel good because they're like, oh my God, I love your shirt. Oh my God, you look amazing today. Go for that friend. Find the very positive affirmation friend that you have. And what's good about it is then you send the picture to them and they send you the thing back and guess what? They say, hey, great job, I'm so proud of you. And you're like, shit, I feel good about myself. Guess what that does? A little bit of dopamine. You could also do this exact same thing at the gym for yourself. So maybe you go to the gym and instead of celebrating yourself, and this is the thing, you don't want to celebrate yourself when you lose 20 pounds. You want to celebrate yourself for showing up at the gym because that makes you more likely to want to show up at the gym tomorrow. But what if you were to make it even smaller increments? What if not only do you celebrate yourself when you walk into the gym of like, hell yeah, you did it today, I'm so proud of you. What if you also did it after every single set? You look yourself in the eye at the gym, in the mirror, because you obviously all gyms are surrounded by mirrors. You look yourself in the eye and in your head you say, you're doing fucking amazing. I'm so proud of you. You're doing amazing at this. After every single set, you start to feel good. And guess what you want? You want to do more. You want to do more. You want to do more. Because all too often, we set up what's called results-based goals instead of action-based goals, which I'll talk about in just a minute, where we say, oh, well, I'm only going to be happy when I accomplish X, Y, Z. That's not the way to get successful. The way to do it is to say, I'm going to celebrate myself every single time I do what I'm supposed to do. And if you go back and you look at, I mentioned a minute ago, Kobe Bryant's a perfect example. He was known for being like hardcore obsessed with playing basketball. And he would wake up and be at the gym at almost every single morning at 4 a.m. And what he did was he would celebrate himself. He was proud of himself knowing that he was at the gym when all of his competition was sleeping. And so he would be excited about himself being there when everyone else was sleeping. And so throughout the entire 2 or 3 hour workout, he's thinking to himself, this is amazing. I'm going to beat everybody. I'm going to be the best basketball player that ever existed. And so what happened was he set up a dopamine reward system about showing up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And guess what he did? He showed up the next day at 4 o'clock in the morning and the next day. And research shows that celebrating yourself will make you more motivated to do it again. Research also shows that having a small piece of chocolate, everybody, small piece of chocolate, not an entire Snickers bar, but a small piece of chocolate after a workout made somebody more likely to show up and do it again the next day. So start to think about this. How can you start to celebrate yourself more often? Because all too often we're our own worst critic. And that's going to actually demotivate you from taking the action that you need to. How can you celebrate yourself for taking action? How can you celebrate yourself after every single set? It doesn't have to be candy. It can be candy, but it can just be literally a mini celebration inside of your head. And the best part about it, like I said earlier, is that a dopamine reward system is fully subjective, which means that you can decide. After I finish recording an episode, I change my shirt, and then I do a mini celebration. And it's like I try to fill myself up with the excitement and the accomplishment of creating an amazing episode. And instead of going, oh man, well, you should have said this, but you said this, which is what most of us do, right? Oh, damn, that was a good episode, but you should have said this. And you forgot this one part. But it's like, I try to fill myself up with, that was amazing. Great job. I'm so proud of you. So many people are just going to change their life. And it makes me want to come back and do the next one. And notice what I did was I attached it to the process of finishing a podcast episode, not the end result of getting 5 million downloads. It's the process of just getting it done, which is what matters. This is why you hear about Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan winning championships and then waking up the next day and going to work out. When you listen to, I actually heard an interview with the guy who was Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant's trainer, Tim Grover, and he said the hardest thing about Kobe Bryant was trying to get him to stop. Like he was that obsessed, but because he just loved the process of building himself into the best basketball player he could become. It wasn't about winning championships. It was about being the best that they could be, living up to their full potential. And what happened was winning the championship was just a byproduct of them falling in love with the process. It was the byproduct of them putting in the work and falling in love with becoming the best they could possibly be. And this is why people who are wildly successful, like I said earlier, just don't stop, because it was never about the money. Most people they think of their goals as the money to be made. Oh, I want to accomplish this. I'll be happy when I make this amount of money. I'll be happy when I get this house. I'll be happy when I can buy myself this car. Money should just be a byproduct of your actions, not the actual goal that you're searching for. And so what you want to learn to do is you want to learn to attach reward systems to the effort, not the end result. So attach it to the effort, not the end result. So that would be the difference between an action-based goal versus a results-based goal. The action-based goal is getting it done. The results-based goal is like, I'll be happy when I make 100 grand. So you want to attach it to getting the things done that need to be done. And then the byproduct will be hitting the goals that you would want to hit. So you would attach, for instance, a reward system to the action-based goal of making the calls, not making the sale. You would attach a reward system to the action-based goal of finishing a workout, not losing 50 pounds. You would attach a reward system to the action-based goal of reading 5 pages every single morning, not finishing the book. You would attach a reward system to the action-based goal of eating a healthy meal, not the way that you look in the mirror. You would attach a reward system to the action-based goal of practicing for an hour at your sport, not winning the championship. You would attach a reward system to the action-based goal of learning one difficult bar of music, not playing the entire piece. And that's what you want to focus on, is focus on the action-based goals, not the results-based goals. And so really what it comes down to as you're listening to this podcast episode is you need to ask yourself, what do I want? What do I want to accomplish? And you find out that destination that you're searching for. And then from that, you ask yourself, what actions do I need to take? What are the daily actions I need to take? What does the process look like that I need to take in order to achieve that goal? And then how can you set up a dopamine reward system to attach to that process? So let's say you want to make $100,000 for the year, because I've said that a couple of times. You want to make $100,000 this year. Okay, cool. What actions do I need to take in order to get there? Well, I need to make 75 phone calls every single day. Well, then you don't reward yourself when you make $100,000. You reward yourself every 7 phone calls that you make. And then what you do is you go 7 phone calls, 7, eventually get to 75 throughout the day, and then you reward yourself again. And you really start to ask yourself, how can I set up a dopamine reward system to attach to the process, not the end result, to the action-based goals, not the results-based goals? Because if you just focus on the action and celebrate yourself for it, you're more likely to show up, which then makes you more likely to achieve whatever it is that you want in the future. Success is a byproduct of the action-based goals. So how can you set up your dopamine reward system and fall in love with the process? So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories and tag me in it, Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. Once again, this is a part that is actually in my book, my new book that's coming out October 3rd, called Level Up: How to Get Focused, Stop Procrastinating, and Upgrade Your Life. If you want to pre-order it, you can go to robdial.com/book right now. And when you pre-order it, you'll actually get it delivered to your house the day that it comes out, and you'll also get entered into $25,000 in cash and prizes that we're going to be giving out. That is just for pre-orders, and also you will get a free class on how to actually stop procrastinating. So once again, if you want to go ahead and pre-order it, get that free class, and get entered into a pool of over $25,000 in cash and prizes, go to robdial.com/book. And with that, I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make someone else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. You've got some older children, and you also just had a new baby last year, so congratulations. And I'm curious, between Tony 30, 40 years ago as a father and now stepping into fatherhood, what do you feel like might have been, what did you do really well when you're like, I definitely want to bring this in? Or what are some things where you're like, all right, I probably need to switch that? Because there's a lot of people listening that have children, and they're helping them create that identity all of the time. And so are there shifts that you've made from, the new baby that you have? You're like, I definitely got to not do this again, or I got to make sure that I do this, to make sure that you help the identity come out the most positive that you possibly can?
Yes, for sure. Well, first of all, I have 5 kids and 5 grandkids, to give you an idea. And I was 24 and had a 17-year-old son instantly, an 11-year-old son instantly, daughter instantly, a 5-year-old son, and then my own blood child on the way. So I had quite a learning. I married a woman that was 12 years my senior. Yeah. And so she'd been married twice and had kids from different fathers, and I had brought them all into my life. So it was a huge part of my growth alone. Mm-hmm. And so, when you're 25 and you're trying to change the world, and now you got all these kids all of a sudden, and they're all in different stages of life, I really had to learn and grow. And I'm proud of what I've done, and I'm super proud of my kids. They're all adults today. And, as I said, I have 5 grandkids. So my grandkids are all older than my youngest daughter now, who's 20 months old. Biggest thing that I've learned because of dealing with so many human beings, is so many human beings in the last decade or two, we've shifted how we raise our children. Every generation, tends to react to how they were raised. Mm-hmm. So baby boomers, were raised in an environment where their parents, went to war and so forth, and they came back and they had all these babies and they wanted them to have a better life. So they told them they were great, sent them to college, gave them everything, and made them very much narcissistic. Not every person, but as a culture, it was more about me, and maybe my mission out there when I wasn't busy, making love, having sex, some mission out here larger than myself. because they didn't have to fight the war. There's an old phrase that says, art for art's sake is the philosophy of the well-fed. Well, they never had to face anything, the baby boomers. So they focused on their spiritual development because they had that privilege, right? And they judged their parents for not being open enough or wide enough or whatever the case may be, right? But then those parents did not pay attention to their kids. They were totally protected initially. They didn't protect their kids. They're busy out doing other things. So the kids that grew up in the 80s and 90s were latchkey kids, not everyone, but it was a different generation. They were raised to be pragmatic. If you ask people, and they've been asking this question since the 60s in college, what's more important for life? A philosophy of life that makes you happy, or pragmatic skills that give you financial freedom? And in the 60s and 70s, 82% plus always said philosophy of life. In the 80s and 90s and 2000s, it was exactly reversed to pragmatic skills. So now those latchkey kids became the ones that overprotected their children because they weren't. And so their children have been raised baby on board. See, in the 70s, every movie about children was Rosemary's Baby, Exorcist, you know. Then all of a sudden it's the 80s and 90s. It's three guys raising a baby. Babies are beautiful, baby on board. The entire philosophy changed to the entire focus is on the child. And that hurt intimate relationships immensely because they put the kids first. And then it also made these kids think they're the most important thing on earth. And so there's so many problems for young people today. When I say young people, millennials are now turning 40. You know, they think they're old now, or they think they're going to become old soon. And the Z generation's fighting them about where they part their hair and all this stupid shit. But the point of the matter is, this group of people has really not faced a real challenge.